Welcome to Third Eye Weekly. With us is Eric Chase, the founder of the Greenwich Village Literary Pub Crawl. Thank you for being with us, Eric Chase.
No, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so let's start out first with understanding how you first got into immersing yourself in the haunts of famous writers and creating this organization.
It was started by a couple of friends of mine and me years ago who were starting a theater company. And we had been trying to do some fundraisers like everybody does to try to pay for off-Broadway theater. And we were doing readings at some of these bars where writers were known to go. I mean, Greenwich Village is, 80 years of literary tourism and bar crawling there. And so we were doing a little bit of that. And then one of our members had gone to Dublin, and there is a Dublin literary pub crawl that dates back to the 1980s, I think. And we just sort of decided to take what we'd already been doing and convert it into something like that. And what's interesting is now that has slowly spawned off into, there's a literary pub crawl in London, and there's one in Edinburgh now. And so there's sort of like this world conglomerate. And I think Ireland is trying to take control of being the original inspirations.
Nice. Have you actually been to any of those other literary pub crawls?
I've been on the London one, and I'm hoping to go on the Dublin one actually this weekend because I'm flying to Ireland for the first time. So.
Nice. And did you notice any similarities or glean any insights into what you could do for your own after seeing those?
I only can speculate what the Dublin one is like because I haven't been on it. I know in London, my hosts were Charles Dickens and Virginia Woolf. Apparently embodying the spirits of young actors in London. So it was very much sort of in character, whereas we tend to focus a lot more on the history and sort of connecting with the people. And then we'll do recitations of the work, but we're not sort of performing in character. But it did make me want to move to London.
Excellent. So the tour in Greenwich starts out at the White Horse Tavern. Is there any significance to that start? Tell us a little bit about the process of really just getting this whole pub crawl together and choosing those certain pubs.
White Horse Tavern is probably the only original bar that's still on our tour from when it started in 1998. It's sort of technically depending on your definition, the second oldest bar in New York City. So I think that was sort of one of the reasons why we like to start there. And they've really maintained their history and their age, and you can kind of tell when you look in the building. I think also just logistically, it's sort of the furthest away, so it's not a bad starting point. And then by the time we finish our tour, we're usually closer. So, we're always looking at just the logistics of, it's funny, after being a guide for this for as long as I have, like I know a lot more about the biological functions of the human body and how to time that appropriately when I'm taking people on a pub crawl, because you have to think about that. I had to run my own bladder test whenever I put together a private tour, which I literally had to do just recently. I had to scope out public bathrooms in advance to see what the walk would be like. Things I never thought that I would learn, at a theater degree in college.
So tell us a little bit about the tour that you have extended into Brooklyn. It starts at the Henry Street Ale House, which has a reasoning behind it as well.
It does, mostly for two reasons. For three reasons. One, because it's cool. Two, because it's very quiet on a Sunday afternoon. And if you come on our tour, we'll sometimes have up to 20 or 25 people, and we'll sit there for like a half an hour or so and tell stories. So we prefer bars that are quiet, who would appreciate the business rather than trying to bring 30 people into a crowded bar where everyone's trying to watch the game. But also it's sort of right across the street from Cadman Plaza, which before it was Cadman Plaza was roughly where Leaves of Grass was first published. Which is obviously Walt Whitman, and he was the Brooklyn Daily Eagle was right nearby there. So it's sort of a convenient gathering spot right close to what is considered to be the preeminent American poet, where he first published his very first collection of poems.
So what's your favorite part of some of these different literary pub crawls? Is it enlightening somebody on a writer that they may not have known before, or getting to sit in a stool that Walt Whitman has sat in before? What's your favorite part?
Well, that's a tough answer. I mean, I think I love it when I see somebody write down an author or a book that I've just done a recitation from or that I've talked about. I know for me, the people that I've read has expanded so much because I'd heard about them doing this tour and wanted to research them and found their books and thought that they were amazing half the time. And so I like the fact that I've been exposed to new writers. And I love it when there are people who are on here who are avid readers looking for something new, and periodically we'll get emails asking for requests, or somebody will come back and say, I never thought I'd read that book before. It was amazing. So I think, in the end, it's that, and there's certain entertainment. I mean, most of the guides are all actors. There's a natural proclivity for actors to do something like that. So there's certainly that, and it's definitely cool to be sitting in a stool that Dylan Thomas may have sat on for the last night of his life, allegedly, or to see some of the buildings that were inspirations for some of the stories. Certainly in the Village, there are several spots that, like, O. Henry wrote a short story set right there. And so that is something that's really kind of fun to sort of actually see these buildings that, some of the buildings that Edgar Allan Poe was walking by that were around at that time. I mean, for a young country, that kind of stuff is really cool.
Awesome. So what's your selection process like for tour guides? I'm curious.
They have to want to do it. I mean, it's periodically, several of the guides came on the tour and then came up to me afterwards and said, I really want to do this. And so instinctively, that's a big selling point. I've sometimes been contacted by guides from other tours who are looking for jobs, who've never, and I kind of feel like I want them to know what we do, because we're not like a normal tour. And we usually do it in 2s or 3s, depending on people's schedules. So there's much more of like sharing, whereas a lot of guides and actors like to talk and be the center of attention. And so, I want to make sure that people understand the vibe, and it's certainly not about the money. It's about really a passion for literature and knowledge, history, and entertainment. And so I want to make sure that that's the reasoning behind it. And sometimes I'd almost rather have somebody who's a little raw, who wants to do library studies and loves researching old books. Like, that to me is more of a drive than somebody who likes to, who leads Red Bus tours and, works for several other guiding companies. Like, that's not as appealing to me. I want it to be about the literature, a little bit about the drinking. It's not really the right tour if you're sober, which I totally respect if you're making that choice. But so it's that. I want people who are personable and like to have a lot of fun. And so oftentimes, not always, but often, they are usually actors or have some kind of theatrical training. Although I do have 2 lawyers and 2 librarians and a massage therapist who are also involved in the process. So makes for quite a party.
Diverse. So do you guys ever include some new writers on the tour? Like, a lot of it seems to be historic, famous writers, but what about some new ones that people start to read and realize that they lived and navigated in the city, Greenwich?
Well, I think Brooklyn has a little bit more of that, because there are a lot of writers that are still there that are writing, whereas Greenwich Village, you don't really live there as a writer unless you're extremely successful and financially well off. Although Brooklyn is becoming that. But, we talk, Jonathan Latham and Jonathan Ames are 2 people that we mention quite a bit that are still sort of living there. We do have some up-and-coming writers who have come on our tour. And I actually have advice that I like to give to new writers who are looking to try to break out in the market. And it's go to a really cool bar, do something extremely inappropriate, obvious, get written up about and arrested for it, and we will do a stop there for a tour, and we will perform some of your work, and you will become famous. So I encourage young writers to get drunk and have public sex and get arrested and start fights and do something that makes for a really good story that for years to come I can tell about that adventure, and it's great publicity for your new book.
Wow.
Some damn good advice.
That's solid.
Not something your mom's going to tell you, but
So to wrap things up, if you could drink with any famous writer, alive or dead, and buy them a drink, who would it be and what drink?
it would be Edna St. Vincent Millay. And I would probably want to challenge her to see if she could drink any of the single malt scotches neat, which is sort of my drink. But she was quite the drinker. I think she was more of a gin and tonic lady most of the time. But yeah, that would be my choice. I think she is the greatest icon to come out of the Village, one of the greatest poets to come out of the country. She's not as well known, and I think that her life is just, she lived a rock star kind of lifestyle before there was rock and roll, and it's sort of a shame that not more people know about her.
I definitely want to check her out.
Yeah,
now.
I'd like to check her out too. That's
Yeah.
great. All right, well, those are all the questions we have. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. This is really fun.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think this is a blast.
Awesome.
Awesome. I'd like to go on the tour one day.
Well, please do. Let me know. I'm sure I could probably sneak you in.
Cool.
Okay.
Have a great day, Eric.
All right, take care. Thanks a lot, gang.